Welcome to our first CSA Fireside. My name is Benjamin Fraser. I have the privilege of serving the Commonwealth Students Association as its chairperson for the term 2022 to 2025. This our inaugural CSA Fireside, if I could call it that, brings together student leaders from the Pacific island nation of Papua New Guinea. I'm here in Jamaica. It's 8 a.m. in the morning, yes, and it's 11 p.m. for my colleagues in this great nation many hours away. I'm going to open the floor for them to introduce themselves. I'll start with Lovanka.
Thank you, Benjamin. Hi, everyone. My name is Lovanka Dotson. I am involved in the Commonwealth as the co-chair for the International Students' Day Planning Committee. And I'm also a 19-year-old student studying business management at the University of Papua New Guinea. Thank you.
Great. Let's hear from our student rep from the Divine Word University.
Hi, Benjamin. Thank you very much. My name is Jason Ray. I'm undertaking a Bachelor of Arts in Papua New Guinea and International Studies. I'm the Student Representative Council President for Divine Word University. We have 8 universities in Papua New Guinea, and Divine Word is one of those 8 universities. And I'm really happy to join you this evening.
All right, and last but not least, our next female leader, our next woman leader on the panel. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Velosa Hahembe. I am pursuing a bachelor's degree in economics at the University of Papua New Guinea. I am the CSA country representative of Papua New Guinea.
All right, so I think there are about 11 countries in the Pacific region of the Commonwealth Pacific region. If you were to meet someone who is just hearing about PNG for short, for the first time, how would you tell them about your country? Jason.
So for my country, it's very diverse in culture. It's a Melanesian country, and we have 800 plus languages, and it's really diverse, and we have our independence coming in an hour time, and this is the very moment where we are diverse in culture, but when it comes to unity and when it comes to together, this is the very moment or the very day that brings all of us together, and this is when you will really see the true beauty of Papua New Guinea. So yeah, it's a very nice country. The people here are very wonderful. The environment is cool. The climate is cool. Everything is just cool. And I would really encourage everyone in the Pacific. And those who have been in Papua New Guinea, they would really know that we are really good and diverse in cultures. And I would encourage many people to come visit Papua New Guinea. But from my opinion, we are diverse in cultures. But when it comes to unity, we are really good in that. Yeah, thank you.
Did any of you experience the full tribal upbringing?
I would say tribal fight.
No, tribal upbringing, as in you grew up with tribal culture, you know, the food, the medicine, the dressing, the education. Did any of you experience that?
Yeah, from my perspective, I would say I've experienced that. I have attended primary school in my local village, and the culture. I'm from one of the Highlands provinces in Papua New Guinea. We have 4 regions in Papua New Guinea, and Highlands province. I'm from Enga province, so it's really nice growing up in the village setting where you would have to enjoy your culture, get to know your culture very well. We have one vernacular in the province, and growing up knowing my culture very well, it helps me to suit very well into the modern, the changing world. Like I get to know my culture well, and then I get to know the Western culture well. Then I'm really in a wedge. I would say that it's really fitting to know my culture and at the same time knowing the Western culture and trying to adapt and all these things. But to grow up in a setting where it's really like modern, you wouldn't really get to understand your culture well. But when you grow up in a setting that is so cultural, like Papua New Guinea, and also people like, for myself, I've grown up in my own village and I've known my culture well. So it's really nice knowing your culture well and then going up to a tertiary institution, and like when you get to understand people, they have different cultures, but you will get the chance to know them better when they explain themselves from their perspective. So yeah, our culture is diverse, but when it comes to explaining my culture from my perspective, they still get to understand our cultures. So that's something that it's hard to understand, but it's really comprehending as well.
Thank you. Vilusa, what's your view on the culture around student leadership and student activism in your country?
Well, student leadership, since I started uni, so when I was in high school through primary, I had like the experience of being like a class captain, and then going to high school, I became a prefect, and then I went to uni, but then it all changed because in high school you become the class prefect, and then you get to take names for students who make a lot of noise in the class, and you get to take class notes and things like that. But when you come to uni, it's like a whole change. So you have like no experience on like how to deal with matters and decision making and all that in like a tertiary institution. So when you come there, you have to transition from what little you know and then try to adapt to how big the conversations are and how rich the discussions are. Yeah. So like getting through all the changes is like, it's both a challenge, but it's also interesting as you learn and like acquire the experience as you go along. I believe Lavinka has a lot of experience with students activism, and she can share also about that.
Go ahead, Lavinka.
So my experience with student activism in PNG, I would have to say it started early on when I was in high school. Vilosha and I actually had the pleasure of attending the same high school. She was my senior, and I saw a lot of what she did as a prefect as well, and I did follow in her footsteps. I did the same thing as her, becoming a prefect. And what she has said about the transition from high school going on to university, in my personal opinion, I think university is a preview of the real world. And I think it was more of a shock for us when we came into university and we realized that life isn't as simple as just taking names of the people that do wrong. And it's not as simple as just saying this is right and this is wrong. Not everyone's going to follow your rules and not everyone listens to authority. So the places or the spaces that I've been involved in student activism would have to be not just student activism, but youth activism as a whole, would be under UNFPA, also under a Papua New Guinean movement called the Clean Generation Movement, which we have affiliated with 5 universities out of 8 across all of Papua New Guinea in PNG. So movements like Clean Generation movements are movements that are meant to empower youths and empower young minds and individuals, not just students, to actually acquire the skills that they can obtain outside of education and use those skills to actually empower the communities. And like they're meant to more or less give off the idea that you don't have to be a politician, you don't have to be someone of such a high level of status to actually make change in your country or in your nation, and trying to break down that stigma that, you know, you have to be a politician or you have to earn a lot of money, you have to be of high status or born into a wealthy family to actually be part of the change. Like you are part of the change, no matter how small you are. So I'm actually happy that I'm actually part of movements like that of student activism in PNG. Yeah, thank you.
I love the responses, but I still want to drill down a little bit more. So I appreciate that there is perhaps nobody on this call that is over 30 years old. So we can only speak from the experience we have in our lifetime. In your lifetime, what is the experience of how authorities acknowledge the student voice? Do students have a say in decisions made about their welfare, about their well-being, about education policy, policies concerning the core subjects that should be focused on, how education should be delivered. We just came out of COVID. Was the student voice included when decisions were being made about how to navigate COVID, navigate changes in education, managing, digitizing education? In PNG, I want to know, does your Ministry of Education value the student voice? Culturally, in your communities, is your experience that, as in some countries where they say young people should be seen and not heard, is that your experience, or do you feel that genuinely you are included in the decisions that concern your future? Give us your honest responses. Start from Jason.
All right, thank you, Benjamin, for the question. It's a really hard one, but I'll give my honest opinion about that question. As serving as the Student Representative Council for an institution that is prestigious in our country, our voices do matters in decision making in our institutional level. Like, our voices matters when it comes to decision making and when it comes to changing of policies and upgrading of our units and courses that we are taking in an institutional level. It does matter. And I would say in a national level, it does matter as well. But most of the times, the decisions that we are being part of the consultation process. So I would say when they want to come up with a process, a decision making or a policy, we are sometimes they consult us before going into decision making. But I would rather say it's sometimes and not most of the time students are. Their voices are being heard when it comes to coming up with new policies, but there's changes where they give us for us to give our views, and most time our lecturers or the senior officers in the education sector, they know very well how we, the students, how we learn in school and how these policies they implement affect our studies and how we go about in school. So they usually consult them to come up with the policies that our country comes up with. So as a student representative in part of coming up with the policies and all this, it's a working in progress that our government has to work with so that our student voices our students' perspective can be, I would say, incorporated in the policies, and our voices can be considered when coming up with the policies, because I feel like it's very important, like how our voices do matter. So it's a working in progress that our government is trying to do. So in the future, I believe our voices will be much more better and we'll get the views of the academia, get the views of the students, student leaders, and then come up with policies that will improve our education sector. So that's an honest opinion from my side, I would say. Thank you.
So this is a beautiful segue to the tremendous efforts that have been going on for about, I believe, 9 months to bring together student leaders of the 8 major universities in PNG. Tell us about that, Jason. You are one of the pioneers of this organization that's unifying the student voice in your country.
All right, considering that sadly we don't have a students union in Papua New Guinea that can be put together, our voices the collective voices can be gathered so that it can be communicated to the government. We don't have that, so we the student representative consult the presidents from all the tertiary universities in Papua New Guinea, 8 of us. So 3 of them were observers. We give them chance to, when the administration agree, they can come in and sign the MOU. But for 5 or 4 universities, we signed the MOU already, trying to come up with a student union so that all the universities, we can work together with the government. When we have such a body in place, we can collaboratively with the government so that we can be part of this and we can be part of policy making and all this so that students' voice can be heard in a national level. So it's a very hard process, or I would say hard step that we, the current SRC presidents, took to actually come up with the steering committee to actually come up with a student union. So with the help of the student union, I believe it's a collective voice. So our voices will be heard, we will be part of decision making, and our education sector will improve. It's a work in progress. So once we come up with it, will be in a better place to represent us.
I want to take this opportunity to congratulate all of you. And if I could highlight my esteemed team member, Bradley Yombom Kopio, who is the Pacific Regional Rep, also a national of Papua New Guinea. I know that he has worked tirelessly to put this together. Him being a former student representative of his university, student union president. Do I have that right? Yes. And I know that he has to navigate the political sensitivities, the cultural sensitivities, and he has to display a great level of understanding and communication. These are skills that he has had to bring to the table in order to achieve this. So Bradley, I know that you are at the 10th Commonwealth Youth Ministers meeting staged in the United Kingdom now, but all over the Commonwealth, we're singing your praises, because what you are doing is something that we want to see mirrored in maybe 24, I believe it's 24 Commonwealth countries that do not have a national student organization or student union that we have. We don't have any knowledge of those countries having that kind of institution in our records. So what you are doing, student leaders of the great island of Papua New Guinea, is setting a standard that we hope other countries will adopt, particularly in your region, which the Commonwealth Students Association is spotlighting for this tenure, the Pacific and Asia, where we feel that more needs to be done to increase and improve student activism. So I'll go over to Lavanka, who is perhaps the youngest on this call, but I think that is an opportunity in itself. You are watching something being built that you may very well lead one day. It's not impossible. How do you feel about the need for this organization that you're watching being built before your eyes? And how do you see your place as a student leader in your first year? How do you see your place in ensuring that this continues and that it doesn't end when Jason and Eliza and the others step down?
Thank you, Benjamin. Wonderful question. I'll try to answer it to the best of my ability. So I do think the NSO is something that is very much needed. You know, a brief history of PNG's student activism was that we had a lot of student voices actually being portrayed throughout the history of our country. During the pre-colonial period we had during the 1960s and 70s, where the UPNG SRC was actually very vocal about self-governance and social reforms that are happening within the country. During the 1980s and 1990s, we had the Bougainville crisis and the Sandline crisis, which was a very sensitive time for Papua New Guinea. And a lot of students were actually very active during that time. Now that we've come to the new age where we have a lot of social and technological advancements, and there's a lot of modern influence coming into Papua New Guinea, I do think that that has greatly affected the student activism movements within Papua New Guinea. I do think that there is a strain between how much we're connected to the real world as to how we're connected to our cultural roots. And we have people like Jason who were brought up in the village who, you know, he knows what it's like to be a true Papua New Guinean. And I even myself can say that, you know, there's some things about my culture that I don't know, truthfully speaking. And that's mostly because I grew outside of the village. I grew up outside of the village and I wouldn't know that. and all these things. So when it comes to things like student activism, like you said, cultural sensitivity, political sensitivity, we have to keep in mind our roots and what actually brings us together. We need people like Jason for that. When it comes to political sensitivity with how we communicate with others outside of our international borders, we need people like Vilausha, people who have like often travel outside. They know how to communicate with the outside world, not just us who are staying within the boundary of our country, so safe and protected. And I think in order for student activism to actually take its course through the NSO that we've recently established, I think a lot of us young Papua New Guineans need to have these difficult conversations. We need to understand that a lot of us are different, but that's the beauty of our country. You know, we're so diverse, but we have unity in diversity. And I think the first step is understanding our differences and our similarities and working together to solve the problems that we can in our own country first before we go out there to portray ourselves to the world. But yeah, thank you.
I also want you to tell me though about how you see your role in ensuring the continuity of this organization. It's an issue that several countries face. They have a group in a particular time that will come together about 5 years or 3 years when those students graduate and are now scientists and sports leaders and politicians. No one was there to continue the work. So how do you see your role, Lavanka, in ensuring that this organization that is so necessary, we all agree, what is your role in ensuring that it continues?
I think that more or less comes down back to what we fear most, our culture. Again, it might be seen as a weakness. Most Papua New Guineans do see it as a weakness, being so culturally grounded to our country, but oftentimes it is a strength. I think that connecting back to our people and learning how to communicate with each other, and especially bringing in those behind us and telling them to, hey, follow me, learn the ropes from me, see what we do. This is why we're doing things like this. 10 years down the line, you'll be like me. 5 years down the line, you'll be like me. Give them a new perspective. See how your country is today. See what we're struggling with. See what those before you are trying to do, and know that we're doing it for you. So when you come to take our place, what will you be doing for the generation behind you? We're not just doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for, our future generations, our children, our grandchildren. And as young as we may be to think about things like that, the reality is we're gonna get old, and so will our country. And what good thing can we leave behind with them?
Thank you. Thank you. Vilosa, you were a part of the delegation that went to New Zealand some months ago. Do I have that right?
No, I was supposed to go, but my visa got delayed.
So you're aware of it?
Yes.
Tell us about the purpose of that visit and how that has benefited the students of PNG.
The visit was, it gathered all the presidents of the tertiary institutions in New Zealand, where they had their own established NSU. So they were part of the decision-making with the government. So the Prime Minister for Education and all the political figures were there, and they had a one-on-one discussion with them, and they said, okay, this is what we want. This is what the students need. If you guys can provide this or not, you guys have to tell us now, because moving forward, this is where we want to go to. So that's exactly what we're trying to establish here in PNG. So I'll just touch a bit on what the PNG NSU is going to be about. So integral human development is a national goal and directive principle in the Constitution of Papua New Guinea. So education is a key contributor to human development. For PNG, the education is also paramount to economic development. The establishment of the PNG National Student Union will foster a platform for students to be a part of the decision-making process regarding the PNG education system. So such an establishment will bring about the education reform that PNG has been longing for. It is paramount that students play an active part in this reformation of the student education because they're the ones that will benefit from the outcome. As an establishment such as the PNG NSU, it can be a platform to harness student talent, promote equality and diversity in leadership, It promotes morals, ethics, and education, promotes student rights and welfare, build academic and career networks, both domestically and internationally for students in the long run. It breaks the barriers in education by providing access to student funding for scholarships to study abroad. Yeah, so my contribution to the NSU, I would really love to see it go forward. I was made the academic committee lead and the career and academic committee lead. So one of the things that I really wanted to do was to like push for more scholarships for the students to go out there and study more like beyond the textbook, because when what we learn in class is usually based on outdated materials that universities have like long before. So that's one of the things that I would like to push for, to get like professionals who have work experience to come into the classrooms and teach the students like what they've learned outside to come in. So this is the importance of establishing the students' union, is to change the entire education system in PNG. Thank you.
Thank you, Velusa. Jason, what would you say to people who think a third world country, such as yours, doesn't need student organizing? What would you say to the view that because we both come from third world countries, I'm from Jamaica, you're from PNG, and I sometimes get a sense from more developed places that we don't need this kind of thing. Yes, we just should go to school, you know, do our best, but the kind of activism that we see in other places is not necessary here. For some small island states, they think maybe, okay, it's too small, you don't need this kind of institution. And some may think, well, we think you're too backward. You may be too stuck in your cultural ways. Respond to that sentiment.
Thank you, Benjamin, for that question. From my personal opinion, I would say that we are in a third world nation, as we have discussed. Third world nation, it's like not everyone in Papua New Guinea are well educated. Like we have more than 50% of our population in rural areas, and most of our population are not educated as we all expect. So like when we come to student activism and when we want to raise concern, we are the ones, the students are the ones that know very well how the government is functioning and how our system is going and what decisions we make, how it will affect our people back in the village. So most of the time we say that we are the voice of the voiceless people. We are the voice of the silent majority. So when we want to advocate, when we want to raise concerns that for the best of our citizens, we feel like students are the ones that will voice the honest perspective when it comes to advocating for people. So such a student union, it will come in handy, and it will be very helpful when we want to raise concerns, because most of the time the people, even the ones that are working, they always look up to students to raise concerns, where they always look up to students to see the wrong in the government. So they expect most times they expect students to point out the mistake, but then when we are diverse and when we are in different institutions, we are not really in a good position to raise the concerns. So when we have such an institution or such an organization in place, I would say that we will understand the people very better, because we are students and we come from different cultures and we understand our people very well. And also we understand the government system or the non-government system, that the system that is already in place. We are in the middle ground where we can understand both things better and then advocate for both of us, the government or our system that is already in place, and also for our people that are back in the village, because third world nations, not everyone is in an education sector. to get better education. Not everyone is well educated to know how our country is governed or run. So the students are in a better position to understand both systems or both perspectives. So when we have such a union in place, we will have unity voice. We will get to understand the system better. We'll get to understand the people better and come up with good decisions that will be better for our system and better for our people as well. It will not only serve the interest of one people or one aspect of life only. So that's from a perspective like third world nation student voice it's really paramount at this time to advocate for the silent majority, and also when any decision that the governments come with, or if any people, the system come up with anything that will affect the lives of the people, we are the ones that will understand the people better and inform them about the things that are changing. So such an organization is really, it really help us, the students, when we go out, the ones that will come up, they will get to advocate in a better way than how the things at the moment are going.
I appreciate your response. Did you know that of 56 Commonwealth countries, I believe, if my memory serves me right, 33 of them are considered small states? Your lived experience, though different, is in many ways similar to millions of young people across the Commonwealth. And several of us come from countries that I would say we have been victimized by Western media in the way we are portrayed. So I watched cable television as a child. And the only time that I saw the Pacific being portrayed was as savages. You were either in coconut shells or straws, living in huts, doing outlandish things. There was never the portrayal of you. The way that you are speaking to me about your nation, your interest and passion for development, for education, for the advancement of your people. I did not grow up seeing that in Western media. Similarly, as a Jamaican, we are portrayed generally as Rastafarians. I've been to certain first world countries where people are surprised that I speak English. So I know that though we come from different places, we do share certain similarities in our experience. And there are places where people are taken aback when they learn that we are interested in participating in our education, not just as customers and recipients, but as Jason is doing in forming that student voice to contribute meaningfully. Tell me about your lives as students. Just give me an average day for you. What, well, not just your university life. Tell me about your life growing up from your early years to now in university. I'll start with Velusa.
Oh, okay, going down memory lane.
Yes.
Well, I'd say during my primary days, it was, how do I put this? Well, it was like a normal day where you just go to school and you wake up in the morning and then your parents prepare your lunch and then they pack it in a bag and then they tell you, let's go to school, and then you have someone take you to school and then leave you and then come back home. But
how did you travel to school?
We take the car or the bus and then we get to school. So it developed over time, and then when you get to high school, you're like left to go make your own way to school and then come back. And then when you go to tertiary institutions, then you're expected to grow up and be independent. So it was like a full transition from being small all the way to when you get to university, and then you have to make a huge transition from leaving the comfort of your parents' home and then growing up to becoming someone as like independent as possible. So
what kind of extracurricular activities were available in your high school?
It was mostly religious, I'd say. We would learn mostly about the Bible. The other things would be like sports. So that was pretty much it in primary. And then you came up to high school. I've been to like 2 schools. I had to switch schools. So my former primary school wasn't that much involved in like student programs in school. When I went to Marinville, that was when I started getting into debates and started being involved in essay competitions and things like that. Impromptus like speaking, public speaking and all that. And then as you get to university, then there's more. I found out that there was more student programs there than what I experienced in primary and in high school. So that's when I started to like put myself out there and partake in all of those programs. It's like the Clean Generation campaign that Lavanka and I are part of. I also joined like an internship program during my second year of studies. So that was like something that I learned about, like an internship. Like you would not know about this when you were in high school or you were in primary, and then you come to uni and they're like, okay, these are the programs that are available for students. So those were some of the experiences that I had.
Okay, thank you. Lavanga, tell us about your experience, your student life experience, growing up and living in your country.
Thanks, Benjamin. I'd say it's quite similar to what Vilosha experienced as well. I spent my primary days in a different part of the country, in my home province where I'm from. And a normal day for me would just be waking up, my mom packing me lunch and walking me to school. So I didn't have to catch a bus, which was honestly, I don't see as a bad thing. I didn't mind walking to school, you know. When it came to high school, I attended the same high school as Vilosha did. And like she said, we took part in a lot of things like debate competitions and essay competitions, impromptu. A lot of leadership roles were actually given to us. And that's something I can honestly say that started student activism for me. That's where student activism started for me in my high school, which was an all-girls Catholic school. So it was very woman dominated. You felt very powerful growing up in that kind of environment, and you were very empowered to, you know, think that your voice mattered in such a male dominated society, which was good to know. It was good to know that, you know, us as females, we had a voice in different spaces, especially when it came to student activism as a whole. By the time I came to uni, it changed. Definitely changed. I got involved with the Clean Generation campaign, as Vilosha did. I also got involved with the art activism movement, which is another movement in PNG. It's a movement in which young artists across the country. Right now, we're just centered in the capital, but it's a movement in which young people come and they spread awareness on the social issues happening in our country. In the movement itself, I'm a spoken word poet. In the art activism movement, I'm a UPNG Clean Generation student leader. And yeah, I think by the time I got to uni, things really changed for me especially the definition for student activism changed for me by the time I came to uni, I would say. It was on a small scale in high school, but by the time I came to uni, the picture got a lot bigger for me. I realized that, you know, it's not just going to be about education sometimes. Sometimes education is linked to other social things that may affect us, and not just students, but, you know, those people, our people at the grassroots and we need to talk about it as intellectual individuals, as the next generation that's going to lead this country. Yeah, that's about it for me.
Well said. I want to go to a topic that I understand is sensitive, but I think it's important that the conversation be had. So I've seen in the media the tribal war, I believe it's still ongoing, in Enga. Did I pronounce that correctly? Jason, tell us how tribal wars affect student life.
All right, that's a nice question. And I think I'm in a better position to answer because I'm from Enga as well. So I'll give an honest perspective of that. Tribal warfare, it's a culture, it's not the culture, it's a way of resolving conflicts. So like, it's a way people solve, people used to fight over land and marriage and all this in the past using the traditional weapons to fight, and after fighting, they come to compensation and then get back to normal life again. So it was compensation in a form of using commodities like pigs and food items in the village and money and all this in the past. And in the past, it was the tribal fight. It didn't really affect people badly. It was not like bushfire it comes to a way where people minimize it really well, and they do compensation after a tribal fight and they live happily. But at the moment, from a student perspective, it really affects students very badly. Like when I was in grade 10 in my high school, it is in Enga province, Sirunki High School, I witnessed a tribal fight myself. And when they fought where the school is, like it really affects the students, seeing people fighting with arms, and you in a class, attending class, listening to these guns. Most time students leave school, the teachers got afraid and left school as well. And most time we don't usually have classes really well. It affects our learning as well. And in places like, especially in islands region where tribal fight is becoming a bushfire at the moment, and it's really affecting the studies of the students. So the government doesn't ignore us. The government always try its best to help us when it comes to trouble fight. Government steps in, send police, defense force to come in, secure the government facilities so the students, especially schools, so the students can learn, the teachers are secured, the students are secured, and we could have classes, do exams. So they protect us during the tribal fight so we can attend classes and complete our studies. But it affects our mentality. I would say that when people are fighting and at the same time you want to go to class, it's really bad for you as a student, because you wouldn't really focus on class while people are fighting and people are being killed right where you have in classes. So it's really bad, and it affects students really badly in provinces like Enga province. Like, so most times when they fought in places that we usually have classes, like we shifted to different schools, like school, to do our exams or do our studies as well. Like if we're in one school and that's where the tribal fight is, then we have to get transfer, moved to another school in the province where there's no tribal fight, just to continue our studies. But most students in the village, they become victims of it, and then they left school, they be in the village, and then when they go back, stay back in the village, they feel like they have nothing to do. So they get involved in the trouble fight and let it goes, it continues. And at the moment, as I'm speaking, the tribal fight is still going up in my province, and the government is trying its best to stop the trouble fighting. And there's some improvement lately, but I believe we still need more time and more people to involve and be advocate of the trouble fight and tell them not to do trouble fighting, because it doesn't only affect the students, but it also affects the people. Because if one of your relatives is killed in a trouble fight, you wouldn't really focus because your relative is being killed, and then you feel like you have a responsibility. Like you have to go back in the village, comfort your siblings. So if your father is being killed, you have your families to take care again, and it's really troubling to live in such a society with trouble fight. But I believe we have to be advocates for this, and we have to tell educate the people. Like most of our people live in rural areas and they don't know how it affects the students and how it affects the future of a student and future of the country. They have to know that the students are their future, the future of the country. They are the ones that will take this country forward when the people at the current position goes down. They don't understand this. They feel like they see tribal fight, they have to fight until the last person dies. And in tribal fight, there's no winner. Both tribes have to, both people at both tribes gonna be killed, and then they're gonna spend their money, commodities again, doing compensation. And then when a tribal fight erupts, they fight again. So it's like a chain where it continues. So we need more people to be advocates and educate our people at the very lower level, at the village level, I would say, so that they can know that it doesn't only affect students, it affects them as people. They become victims of trouble fight. They migrate from one village to another. It affects them. It costs us more than what we see on the media or what people see. It not only in a physical way or not in a resource area, we lost our resources, but also our mental capability, mentality. Like when you are traumatized, you cannot focus well, you cannot progress in life because your mind is always been troubled. My mom is a victim of a trouble fight, and at the moment, even though she has kids, all of us are over 20, she always tells us about how tribal fight has affected her life as well. So it's a scar that lives with you for the rest of your life. So we have to educate people. If we educate people and they understand how things were out, the effects and consequences of tribal fight, I believe that's the only way we can change the perspective. The only way is to change their mentality and educate them that these are the consequences, these are the effects, so that they will know that if we do this, it's going to affect our people, it's going to affect the future of our children. So they're going to be advocate and stop tribal fight. But to grow up in a place where tribal fight is common, it's really hard. But the tough one, it's really hard, but we managed to get out of it.
Let me say, Jason, thank you so much for speaking honestly and boldly about this issue that I am not placed to speak on, but I'm happy that you have used this platform to voice your thoughts. It's 15 minutes before the 40th birthday of PNG, and I think it is so fitting that the sons and daughters of the soil speak on this issue. You know, in PNG, the issue may be tribal fighting. In another Commonwealth country, it could be child labor. In another Commonwealth country, it could be gang violence. In another Commonwealth country, it could be human trafficking. I also wanted to allow you to speak on the issue of tribal fighting, because I want us to see ourselves as student leaders, not just voices on education specific issues only, but we have a role to play in advocating for the improvement of our nation as a matter of public interest. Because as you said, Jason, who better to do it than students who are receiving an education, who are learning about other ways that things are done in the world, that we can incorporate it into our own countries. Students, you look into it. Many of the persons who ascend to national leadership were student presidents, student council presidents, student union presidents. Yes, because there is a clear nexus between the advocacy that a student leader brings to the table and what is done at the national level, at the public policy level. So I want students across the Commonwealth who will view this on our Spotify, well, listen to this on our Spotify podcast, or this is going to be stored on YouTube. It will be there for other generations of student leaders to see, hopefully. I want you to see your role as advocates who are students, not just to focus on education-related issues, but your voice should be included on matters of national interest. Of course, student issues are at the forefront, and how these various thematic issues affect students should be at the forefront. Poverty, climate change, political corruption, food, nutrition, All of those things affect students and affect how education is delivered. So I believe strongly that youth leaders, student leaders must contribute in a positive way to conversations around national development. We should do so in writing. We should do so in speaking. We should organize forums. We should put forward papers, proposals. We should have negotiations and communicate with our leaders. I think the preferred mode of advocacy, at least that's the standard of the Commonwealth, is to avoid protests that will disrupt our living and would cause violence. That's the preferred mode. That's why we encourage cooperation and talks. In the Commonwealth, we talk a lot about having talks. You talk about the good offices of the Secretary General. That's because we want people to come together to share understanding. That's how we do our advocacy. And I hope that in the future of the National Student Union in Papua New Guinea, that will be your preferred mode of advocacy, conversation, and that your government will receive conversation. Yes? So I know it's approaching 12 o'clock, so we're going to wrap up in a few minutes, but I do want to say some things about the CSA. The Commonwealth Students Association is sending a delegation of its EXCO to Papua New Guinea in the first quarter of next year. And I'd like to hear your views about us coming to PNG. Do you think the CSA should come, or do you think we could just stay in our countries wherever we are? Velusa, tell us, how do you feel about the CSA coming to host training and meet with stakeholders and meet with you in person?
It sounds amazing. I cannot wait for them to come. I feel that it would actually be a really, really great thing to happen for Papua New Guinea. Having the CSA here on the ground and seeing what the students' life is like here and what they can bring to the table to help not just Papua New Guinea, but all the Pacific Island country students here. So I'm really excited to be a part of that as well. So I'm looking forward to your arrival next year.
All right, before Jason responds, let me just read the executive summary. We are going to be having these CSA Fireside talks on a weekly basis. The host will change, but we will be building some momentum towards the Year of Youth Engagement Tour that targets the following countries that have been strategically selected based on their willingness to engage the CSA, low levels of student participation, their efforts to establish an NSO, or offering of support to partner with the CSA on a specific project. We want to connect with Malta, Cyprus, Kenya, Namibia, South Africa, Mauritius, Seychelles, Malaysia, Singapore, Maldives, Brunei, Papua New Guinea, Australia, New Zealand, Samoa. The CSA has active partnership in 17 countries, though there are 39 known national student organizations and student unions that have been documented in the CSA's records from the 2016 State of Student Governance Report to the recent 2022 Progress Report. The CSA only has active participation in 30% of the Commonwealth. There are 24 countries with no known national student organization, along with at least 2 countries that have declined membership but consider themselves allies. There are 6 countries making active steps towards establishing an NSO, and PNG is named in one of those 6 countries. In 2019, the Caribbean and Americas Engagement Tour engaged 100 plus student leaders, convened 26 strategic partnership endorsement meetings, and 4 capacity building workshops. 4 years later, the Caribbean region is still yielding the benefits of in-person networking, training, and organizing. During the tour, the CSA representatives will organize capacity building training for student leaders and focus group sessions, partnership meetings with youth officials and ministers, technical meetings on decolonization of education and the recognition of non-formal learning, training in child soft skills development using the soft skills teacher handbook developed by the CSA, promotion of educational materials jointly produced by the CSA under our joint enterprising fundraising strategy, the review and adoption of the Commonwealth Student Government Integrity Declaration by NSOs and SUs, and the review and adoption of the Commonwealth Student Safety and Security Agreement by member states. We have a lot to plan and execute leading up to our coming, and I want to extend an open invitation to student leaders in PNG who want to volunteer and participate in these plans. We want you to be a part of it. We need your help to make it happen. And we hope that you will receive us when we get there. Jason, I said a whole lot. What are your thoughts?
I would say it's a very exciting, like we already have Bradley in place and he's been very vocal. He's been very helpful and he's only one guy, and we also have people that are working with Bradley to make things happen. So we would really love to have Commonwealth Students Association representative coming. Like we have we have 8 universities and we have colleges and we have all these institutions that have students that have been really want to engage in such programs. So having such programs and these objectives for students to be part of and meetings and having these partnerships, I would really appreciate. And I would say that as the student association president currently, and I'll be going out, I will recommend this for my upcoming leaders, that these people are going to come next year. You have to work with them because we need such engagement. We have to change the mindset of the people. That's a very key thing, that if we change their mindsets, we're going to change everything. If we can't, our mindset cannot be changed. We are not changing anything. So having meetings, having partnerships, having like panel discussions and all this, it's going to transform people's mindsets. And it's going to help the people, students, to be advocates, as you have mentioned. Like we have to be advocates, not just for the education system, but for the issues that are affecting our people. So having you guys here, it will transform people's mind, the student leaders' mindset, and it will help them to make well-informed decisions that not only going to affect the student level, but also the people that they represent in their local villages as well. So I would really love if you guys pay a visit to my institution or Divine Word University. It would be really helping for my student leader here as well, because most of our students here really love to work with organizations abroad. So I would really appreciate it, and it will be a mind-changing for student leaders as well.
Thank you for that endorsement. Lavanka, what's your take on it?
I am very excited. I can't wait for the Year of the Youth to start, honestly. I think things such as the capacity building workshops that you mentioned and networking and partnership, it's all very exciting news. And I can't wait for PNG and its youth and the rest of the country to be exposed to that kind of spotlight. And, in the light of independence in just 2 minutes time and our country being almost half a century old, I think it's about time that we actually take this step forward, and we have a lot of advancements in this thing. So I'm more than grateful. Thank you, Benjamin.
And Lavanka, tell us about International Students Day.
Oh, yes. So International Students Day this year is going to be spotlighting the Asia Pacific region. Currently on our planning committee, we have representatives from Bangladesh and India from our Asia counterparts, and 2 representatives from Papua New Guinea. We're looking to expand our committee members to more Pacific Islands, more Commonwealth Pacific Islands, more Asia Pacific Islands. So what we're actually looking to target around this year for International Students Day is actually something along what Fireside is about as well, the podcast, addressing student activism in these different regions, the Asia Pacific region and so forth, because I believe, Benjamin, you have mentioned that when it comes to the Asia Pacific region, we tend to be the most least interactive in the Commonwealth, and that's something that the Commonwealth Students Association wants to change. So for this year's International Students Day, we're looking to spotlight the Asia Pacific region and see what we can get out of it. So we have a lot of fun virtual activity plans that we're working on to come up with, and our posters should be out by the 20th of this month, and we're hopefully going to promote it. And we want as many Pacific Islands, many Asian, many other Commonwealth Association counterparts to also join us for this amazing International Students Day on November 17th.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I am going to give each of you an opportunity to just celebrate entering Independence Day. Say something good about your country. Say something to celebrate the moment as we close our first CSA Fireside, starting with Velusa. Is she frozen? No. All right, let's start with you, Jason.
All right, thank you, Freda. Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you very much for this opportunity. It's my first time getting in such an opportunity or such a meeting during an independence period where our country is getting excited to celebrate our independence, and we are here trying to advocate and make the pathway for our students in the future. So it's really exciting, and I would like to say thank you very much for this opportunity. And our country needs our voice. We, the students, are the ones. We don't only need students to be the ones going to education system, get an employment and go out living a life. We want students to be the change. We want students to represent their villages as well. So it's 48 independence. We have come a long way, and we have a long way to go. And I would really love to see our students being the voice out there and represent our people in a way they should be represented, because most of them said we are the silent majority. We cannot talk, but you are the students that we trust in you. So this is my message to all the students across our country, Papua New Guinea. I believe the Commonwealth students are watching as well. We, the Papua New Guinea, is our 48th independence, and we are really proud to be Papua New Guineans. It's 48 years of being independent. We have been independent for 48 years, and we are really proud that our country is independent. So my message to the students is that this is our time. We cannot wait for people to push us. We can push ourselves beyond our limits and be the advocates for our people and make our country change. If we don't see the future, we cannot push forward for the future that we want, then who's going to push us? If we cannot allow ourselves to be approach the future that we want. So we have to be the change and just make the country a better place for everyone to live and minimize social issues and just live happily. So yeah, just happy 48 independence to everyone watching online. Yeah, especially Papua New Guineans, and I believe the other countries will also wish us. So thank you very much for the opportunity as well, Benjamin.
Thank you, sir. Lavanka.
Thank you, Benjamin. My message to Papua New Guineans is honestly, please get out there, young Papua New Guineans. It's okay, and it's important to get uncomfortable, and it's important to have uncomfortable conversations about your country. And honestly, no one's going to do it for you. You have to get out there, and you have to talk about where you're from. You have to address the issues of where you're from, and do whatever it takes to actually change your country. Because after 48 years of independence now, going on to 50, and honestly, let's do some more things that we can be proud of. We're already proud of our country. Let's make ourselves more proud of our country. Let's move forward. Let's connect with other countries. Let's connect with outsiders, and let's see where it takes us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I see that Velusa has left us, but let me express my appreciation and the appreciation of the CSA executive to her and to you both for joining this conversation. Thank you so much. I'd also like to publicly thank Angela from Uganda. She's part of the chairperson's task force, and she was very instrumental in organizing today's activities. I'd like to thank Sidela Maki who is the co-chair of the Digital Marketing Committee, who has put together the graphics and has helped to organize the promotion of today's online talk or fireside. We will be meeting with student reps from Malaysia, Pakistan, and Bangladesh next week, Friday. Please join us as we move throughout the Commonwealth, but we are spotlighting the Asia and the Pacific region. Thank you so much. Happy Independence Day and have a good night.
Likewise,
Thank you.
Benjamin.
Thank you.